What's up, guys? Now, a lot of you were coming into summer. After summer is fall, and summer and fall is race season for a lot of runners. And look, signing up for a race and then getting to the race and then getting through the days before the race can be a little anxiety producing. So today we're going to be talking about some things that matter and some things that don't matter in the days before a race. Let's get into it. Alright, welcome back. Now for this video I did come across an article in Trail Runner magazine, and this article is by David Roche, and we all know that that guy is worth listening to. And the article is titled What Matters and What Doesn't Days Before a Race. And this can be pretty key. I mean, especially if you're a new runner and you haven't got used to those feelings of stress and anxiety, otherwise known as the taper crazies. You know, when you can sometimes be just a little on edge because you're not doing all the things that you're used to doing or want to do. And it's also, we can potentially reach our potential on race day. So the first thing we're going to talk about is food and eating. And ultimately, David says that we should eat enough, but not to worry too much about actually what we eat. And this has been kind of like a growth process for me over the years, because I used to pay attention to exactly what I was going to eat the night before a race, and I couldn't deviate from it because I'd had success at one time eating a certain food and I would just follow that. And then as the years go on, sometimes it's not as easy to eat exactly what we want. For example, when we go out of town and you have to eat at a restaurant or go to a grocery store and buy your food to eat, you're not always going to be eating exactly what you think you should or what you think you want to the night before a race. And it turns out that that's okay. As long as you're not going to eat something like brand new that your body is going to reject and have some strange, horrible reaction to. And I'm not talking about an allergy. I'm talking about like a race day disaster. Let's just leave it there. Yeah, as long as you're not having anything that you haven't tried before, all bets are off. Your main goal is to just eat enough food. So in the days leading up to a race, let's say you're in a new town and you want to go out for pizza or a burger or have fries, it's totally fine. Just make sure you're eating enough. Now, I'm not a dietitian and I understand that pizza, burger and fries may not be the healthiest fare. So if you are concerned about that, then speak to a dietitian. But I guess the point is not to fixate on one thing. As long as you're getting enough, you're going to be okay on race day. And the article points out a great maxim that all runners should follow. Eat enough, always. Eat too much, sometimes. Eat too little, never. I like that. I can get behind that one. Us as athletes, especially when we're racing, we always have to make sure we eat enough. And once in a while, it won't hurt to eat too much. Remember, we got to fuel our bodies. In fact, I remember years ago, it seems like it happened a lot more years ago, but before big races, before marathons, the organizers would put on like a spaghetti dinner the night before a race, because it was thought, and I guess a lot of people do still think this, that carb loading has to be done the night before and it has to be in obscenely large quantities. And that's just not true. We actually have to plan this over the days before a race to fill up our glycogen stores. And I've actually got to a point where I don't change anything leading up to a race. I know that my regular diet works. I definitely know that I eat enough food, so I try and stay as consistent as possible. Now, what I have noticed that has changed over the years as I rack up more races, and I always say that every race is an experiment. So as I go through more experiments, I found that as long as I'm eating enough through the days before, I'm going to be fine. But what makes a difference is what I eat the morning of the race and then going through the race. So I like to have a fairly big breakfast before I race, and then a gel or some chews before the race, and then I like to take gels consistently through the race. And I've noticed that in years past, when I didn't do that, I didn't perform as well, or I didn't feel as good performing. And the same thing happens when I get sick of eating the same gels. Like there are sometimes you've just had enough and the thought of stomaching another gel just doesn't sit right with you, so you don't do it. I mean, you're gonna have to make that decision at the time, but I would suggest like just sucking it up and having that gel that give you the energy needed to finish and to be happy with your finish. Next up is sleep. And I think this is a big one, because talk about things to worry about and things to not worry about. I have worried about sleep way too much before a race. And I've had several races where I have had zero sleep the night before the race, and it hasn't impacted my performance. Now, obviously, you're going to feel a lot better getting to the start line with a full night's sleep. And if you can get that, I definitely recommend it. But sleep deprivation the night before your race, my friends, it doesn't really matter. So if you do suffer from that, and I have been up all night just kind of lying there just waiting to fall asleep, going through all my sleep practices, don't sweat it. It's not going to hurt your performance too much. Hold on, we'll get more into that in a second. Now, of course, I'm not recommending that you go out and you like start doing some exercises, like you're in your hotel room, you get up, you start doing squats. No, relax. Your body wants to relax. Your body wants to rest. So let it. Just lie there. At this stage of the game, doing nothing is better than doing something. So just lie there and perhaps sleep will come. But to give you a little more confidence than just some random YouTuber telling you, there was actually a study, a 2003 study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology, and they found no performance decline in anaerobic exercise after 24 hours of sleep deprivation. Now, at this point, I know what you're saying. You're saying, Matt, we don't race in an anaerobic state. Well, you're right. But there was also a 2009 study from the same journal that found after 24 hours of sleep deprivation, there was only a very slight performance decline in low-level aerobic activities. So this is what I want you to think about. When we are running a race, half marathon, 10K, 5K, we're not running in an anaerobic state. We are running in an aerobic state, but we're not running in a low aerobic state. We're running in a high aerobic state. So that condition falls right in the middle of both studies. So my interpretation of this is that there is a very, very, very slight performance decrease from 24 hours of sleep deprivation. Not even enough to worry about. And that conclusion is based on both studies. So it's based in science. Anyway, I guess the point is, don't worry about sleep. Now, there was a more recent study that breaks it down even more, and they found that sleep deprivation does have long-term negative effects, but they found that the short-term effects are not extreme in most cases. But it's not going to be our case, so don't worry about it. Okay, the next thing I don't want you to worry too much about is tapering and being off your feet the entire time. So if you're one of those people that just likes to put your feet up for the week before the race and do nothing, that is probably not the best idea. If you have a coach or you're following a plan, you are probably following a taper plan where your overall volume is going to be going down. Wait, my hand's going up. Where your overall volume is going to be going down. And as far as everything else goes, you should just keep on doing what you normally do. If you go for a walk after dinner, that's fine. If you want to go for a short bike ride with the kids, also fine. Now, I probably wouldn't go and crush it in the gym with a lower body workout, but I guess the point is that you can still be active. And actually the goal before a race is to avoid muscle damage, not muscle activation. And the basic premise behind this is that we need muscle activation in order to get top performance out of our muscles. If we do nothing for a few days, that top performance could go away and we reduce our blood volume. So keep living your life as you normally do. You are tapering by lowering your runs. Everything else can pretty much stay the same. That does not include going to a World City major marathon and walking around for 2 or 3 days before the race. That's a little excessive. Next up is caffeine, coffee, tea, whatever your poison is. And in a nutshell, David suggests not changing your patterns unless you're used to changing your patterns. So you might have heard of a lot of people kind of tapering off caffeine for a couple of weeks before the race so they can then have some caffeine on race day and then get those race day performance benefits. Well, unless you have done that in practice, don't do it for the first time right before a race. There's a lot of genetic variables to how we process and how we respond to caffeine, so we're all going to be different. So you can't look at somebody else doing one thing and think, I'm going to try that. That'll work for me. Don't risk your race. As always, it comes down to the most important race lesson, and that's not to try anything new on race day or in the week leading up to race day. Next up, nerves. Look, totally normal to be nervous. I have definitely been very nervous before a lot of races, especially on those races that I didn't sleep at all the night before. That was definitely nerves related. And you should know that nerves are totally normal for everyone. You think the pros going out to run a race don't have those same nerves that you do? They absolutely do. So accept at it, laugh at it, and it's all part of the taper crazies. We're not doing what we normally do. We've been training for weeks and weeks and weeks, and now we're asked to not do it. I mean, for a worthy end goal, our performance is going to be a little better, but it still drives us crazy. It still is nerve-wracking and anxiety producing, and it's totally normal. And it's funny because we all have the same thoughts. Things like, I haven't trained enough. I'm not sure I can do this. I wish I was a better runner. Why am I even doing this? I don't want to be here. Now, it's funny that why am I doing this? I don't even want to be here. I usually get that feeling like a couple of weeks out from the race. And then it completely goes away on race day because I'm so excited and happy to be there. So look, just accept it. Talk to another runner. They all know the deal. It's totally normal to be nervous, so it's okay to be nervous. Oh, and one last thing. There is a great line in the article that says that caring about something enough to be nervous about it is a sign that you're living a full life. And I want you to live a full life, so get nervous. And I'm happy that you're so nervous about your races. And because I said nervous, if you have made it till this point in the video, I want you to drop the yo-yo emoji in the comments. Because anyone that yo-yos is living a full life, I think. Anyway, it's Matt B. This has been a video on what matters and what doesn't in the days leading up to a race. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.